Hello, folks, and welcome to That Sunday Show on the Four Lads Had a Dream podcast network. I'm your host, as always, on a Sunday, Andrew Stewart, and I've got my usual suspects back this week. First of all, Calvin, thank you for coming on tonight, mate. How are you?
Could be better, could be worse. Cold trip to Easter Road is the easy way to put it.
I'm sure we'll get into the ins and outs of why we're feeling the way we're feeling, but it's actually time to get on to that. Lastly, but not least, before we crack on, Cheryl, thank you for coming on.
Hello, happy new year, guys. New year, same old nonsense, unfortunately.
Yes, we'll get into it. Just before we do, just down below you can see it there. Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, Black Rooster and Art of Gold are sponsors for the season. Thank you as always. Before we get into it, we've started to do it recently on the show a wee bit more, which is on me. I should have been doing this a lot longer ago. Get your comments in, folks, if you're listening live, and give us your thoughts. How are you feeling after today's result? We'll get some up on the screen, and also thank you for joining us. We'll get into it. Just in the meantime, let's start with our team for the day. I have to say, I had a long Saturday night, and I woke up shortly before kick-off. So I didn't see the team until I was sitting downstairs watching it. That team was unchanged though, which was easier. Liam Kelly in goal, Jeff the proper Sterling Yilmaz, Raskin Diamande Bayrami, Hadji Cherny and Hamza Igamane up top. Calvin, I'll start with you. Are you expecting anything different with the lineup? You know, I say don't want to change a winning team and all that. But I had no real issues with it. What about you?
No surprises. Should have been good winning Thursday. Carry on the same form. First time this season we've had the same starting 11 back to back in the league. So interesting one that. Obviously we're not kind of blessed with options at the minute in certain positions, but it had to be the same team based on how they performed Thursday. So no surprises for me.
Yeah, sure. That's kind of no surprises. I was only thing I was maybe thinking of is will the sports scientist step in at all? But I wasn't too bothered about that. I was actually kind of happy to see the same 11. What about you?
Yeah, I thought so. The only thing I thought he might do is start Danilo ahead of Bayrami, but that didn't bother me that change wasn't made. I don't think after Thursday it was particularly necessary. We've seen how well Bayrami done, particularly off the ball. So, yeah, I was quite happy with it. I think we all, it probably with different people at different points since Thursday, mentioned the thought that probably this was a potential banana skin for us. We know how well we played on Thursday. With the kind of lack of depth that we had, how surprised and delighted we were with the result. But I think for a lot of people, myself included, this was in the back of your mind that we could do really well on Thursday and then go and muck up this afternoon, which is exactly what we did. What about you guys?
Well, I think there's positives to take from today. I know it's difficult to say that given we're Rangers, but knowing where we are and how much of a journey I think we have ahead with this team, the story that Clement always tells us about, I think you take the positives, you dust off, and you go again. But the only thing that annoys me about it is it's again this away record. We have the hoodoo away from home. Calvin, what's your thoughts on that?
It's a never ending scenario. If you look at the form, if you look at home form, we sit pretty much top of the table, joint with the other side. Whereas when you look at away form, we're sitting with 7th or 8th or something like that the last time I checked. So there's the big issue. You're getting the points at home. We're doing it at Ibrox and Hampden early in the season. But then you look at pretty much nearly every away performance, we're gifting goals. Like I thought the goals today were pretty poor. Like it's just the same story of not getting out to the ball fast enough, gifting away chances, set pieces. We're not getting broke down with amazing bits of play. It's more just somebody wanting the ball more than our defenders do at times. And I think that's the thing that annoys you. If you're conceding wonder strikes, etc., it makes a difference. But when it's general poor bits of play you're conceding from, that's the bit that annoys me. I know there's a penalty issue, but the other goals, it's a corner and then coming from another set piece, ball comes back through, not getting out to it quick enough. That's the issue I see in it.
So we'll start positively. Let's talk about how good we were in the opening stages, which is a rarity. You know, we start games slowly the majority of the time. Cheryl, it was nice to see us, I don't know if it was the energy that we get from an Old Firm win, as you couldn't have not taken a boost from that result. And we started on the front foot. We did really well. Looked threatening. A goal inside 5 minutes and another before 20. It was the nicest way we could have kicked on from an Old Firm result like that.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think we continued that press against Hibs as well, because certainly the first goal came from Igamane pressing on Bashiri and forcing an error, and then capitalising on that error as well. We started brightly. We did, as you alluded to, Andy, we did the opposite of what we have done previously, of starting poorly and then kicking on, or certainly drawing level in the second half. But we looked bright, we looked up for it, and I think we shocked Hibs just with our start as well. The first 20 minutes, I'd say even as far as half an hour, we were completely in control of the game. The passing was excellent, the movement was great as well. And then I think I don't know, I don't even know what happened. We go the 2 goals up, we seem to, I don't know, get complacent, and we let Hibs back in the game. And from then it was like the advantage, or the kind of enthusiasm that gave them from that first goal, we didn't ever really seem to recover from, because even further on into the game, I think towards the end, to me, it seemed like we were holding on slightly, but I realise I'm rushing ahead. No, the first half hour, Andy, I think we were excellent, and we did get that boost from Thursday.
Calvin, we've said it so many times that we do leave ourselves with all to do in the second half away from home this season. It's obviously, this is the thing. We have this trend away from home, which the players, give them their credit, will tell you after games where we do drop points. The manager will tell you we just seem to not have the same level of impact away from home as we do at home. But is this one of these things? I know there's a big picture with this rebuild where we say we need progress. Is this going to be one where we say that was a good 30 minutes, but we need to make that 30 minutes 60 minutes, and then make that 60 minutes 90 minutes? Is it going to need to be a bigger picture from here?
Yeah, I think it's clear, but there were some really good bits of play, and I think that first 20-30 minutes, we probably should have been more than 2-0 up. There was the one where Bajrami went through, Czerny had a chance, Igamane had another chance as well, and then there was just a couple of balls that were going in behind that were just skipping away, obviously, on the surface for the kind of weather conditions. And they were putting it together well, and it was the link-up play for midfield. They were getting forward. What's one of the biggest things we've felt's been an issue this season is we've not managed to get bodies forward fast enough. We were giving ourselves opportunities to do that. Midfield joined in with the strikers, or wingers tucked in. Both full-backs went. So we were getting bodies in the box with a chance to create opportunities, and it wasn't just left to the odd drifted ball across. Like, the players were getting there. And that's probably the positive we're looking at over the last couple of weeks. We are creating chances now, and it's not just daft shots. It's proper opportunities where you're forcing keeper saves, and we hit the post again today, which is that 4 times in the past 4 days. So you can see there is improvements coming, but as you said, it needs to be a full 90-minute performance rather than short spells.
Cheryl, the goals we're scoring, a lot of last season, or when we ran out of gas, and even just the start of our season away from home, especially, it always felt like if in doubt we'd resort to getting the ball into the wide areas and just lumping it in the box and seeing who can win the headers. The goals we scored today, I know there was a lovely header in there from crosses, but it's more, I'm trying to think of the word, it's better working of these opportunities. It's not just the rinse repeat, wide in, wide in, wide in. There was, intrusion into the back line, and getting towards, the byline itself, cutting back. There was variety in the way we were getting the ball into the area, and for me, that's there's only so many times you can keep getting the ball and hit the early crosses that Tav does, because it starts to become brain numbing at times. If we can keep playing those kind of nice wee passing plays and lead to those kind of cutbacks, these goals will come.
Absolutely, and I think I said that on our group chat today. The work down both of the flanks today, particularly in the first half an hour, was excellent. But we can do that all day, guys, if we're making those mistakes at the back, if we're not dealing with high balls, because we looked petrified at times today. I never felt confident I was delighted and surprised when we got it back to 3-2, but I didn't think there was a chance that we were going to be able to hold on to that lead, unfortunately. And I'm seeing there that Andrew's saying that we need a centre back. I think we need two. I think we're in dire need of at least a centre back, but probably two. And for all the good work that we were doing up front as well, I think that that goal, I think was it the second or the first goal, came from that slack pass from Diomande. Czerny, as much as he's the player, he's our kind of flair player that's offering us something at the moment as well. We're giving away the ball far too easily at times, guys.
This is where I'm going to go a wee bit off script for me. If you listen to me regularly hosting on the show, you'll know that positivity is my thing. I'm going to have to throw that out the window in my way. I'm not going to start effing and jeffing and, being blue like that. I'm going to just say a trend is a trend. We play nice football, we take the lead, and then we start to play like we're world beaters. Individuals start neglecting the basics, going the fancy flare passes, taking on the man when they don't need to, coughing up the ball, giving the other team a chance at life in the game, and they go and take it. Happened in the cup final. It happened at the Old Firm at Ibrox. Although Celtic couldn't capitalise, they did in the cup final. Happened today. We let Hibs back into it. And if you let teams back into it, the law of averages will tell you they will score eventually. And that's exactly what happened today. I've seen a lot of people saying the players let the manager down, ball watching for the Hibs goal. It's I can't be the only one seeing it. And although I'm happy with this group of players, we need to iron that out. I don't know if I'm wide of the mark used to that. Calvin, what's your thought? It just seems like, for me, we've done our job. Let's enjoy it now, and they just neglect the basics.
Yeah, I think decision making starts to go very, very quickly when you see that kind of 2-goal lead. I was always talking as younger, no matter what sport it is, 2-goal leads are probably the most dangerous, because as soon as they get one back, the pressure hits you fast. If it goes one each, you're in a battle. You start to get comfortable at 2-0, and that's when we really needed to get that third goal. When we were dominating, creating chances, Hibs were so far under the cosh at a lot of stages at that time, and we couldn't get that third. And as soon as they got that first goal, you seen it kind of start to switch. The players still kept going, but you could see in Hibs' favour, they were starting to get a lot more opportunities, and you could see they just wanted it in certain areas of the park a wee bit more, which was the disappointing thing for me. Whereas you could see, get that third goal, you were out of sight, but they just couldn't nail it down. And it might have been a little bit unluck. They were creating the chances. It's just it's just fine margins again. Get that third goal, kill them off. Like we said, we need to be a bit more relentless in those opportunities, and that's something we've really struggled with.
I don't know about you guys, but actually I watched a wee bit of it back later on this afternoon, and that first Hibs goal reminded me slightly the second goal that we lost at Motherwell, where we had plenty of players in the box, but just nobody really reacting to it. And then it was a slightly different ball, but again, Bashiri had the time to get that ball, to pass it out to, who was it? Was it Boyle? Boyle scored the first. Yeah. Had the time to get the shot away, even though our box was packed with players. Nobody is reacting to that. It's the same type of thing that we're seeing time and time again defensively.
Yeah, it was 3 or 4 times before they finally got that shot off. That's the disappointing thing for me. They've been given 3 opportunities to get a shot off a goal, or roll it to the next person, without a Rangers player getting out to block them. And that's just simple defending. It's a little bit of decision making, just a little bit of just determination to get to the ball first, and they had it at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, I've went off, so let's maybe rein it back in. I'll wind my neck in a wee bit. It would be poor of us to go through this entire show without mentioning a hat-trick hero for today. I know the result didn't go away, but that doesn't neglect the fact that you can talk about individuals. Hamza. It was Morocco clock in the capital today. Sheryl, again, he just seems to have that bright spark that a football team needs, especially as there's been so many bleak moments this season. Again, being slightly negative, I worry how long we're going to hold on to him for if he keeps doing this week in, week out.
And that's the frustration of today, Andy. That should be what this whole pod is about. That should be the title of it. That's what we should be discussing, because it should be about him and his contribution, and the way that he's developed, even in the short space of months and weeks from when we first seen him in that Old Firm game. He came on, I think, with 10 minutes to go, and he looked like he had a wee bit about him. We've been repeatedly told that if we didn't get him now, we wouldn't have got him in a couple of years' time, but also that he's very raw. But I think the difference from the first time that we heard that, the difference in how he is now, his contribution today was obviously absolutely massive. But he's not, do you know, he contributes everywhere. He's not a poacher. He's not somebody that's just waiting around the goal line. He works, and he works hard, and he's strong, and he's actually skillful as well. So like you, Andy, I mean, it may come to it. I don't know. We'll be lucky maybe to keep him on till the summer, maybe a year or so, but you wouldn't blame teams for looking at him, because look at his contribution today. The way that I think it was and I'll see it in my sleep tonight, that chance at I think 89 minutes, but his strength to be able to take the ball and run with it and get his shot away when I think it was Bashiri that was on his back again, to be able to do that was brilliant. I'll just forever see it, I think, that clipping off the post and then going round it. But we've absolutely unearthed a gem, and without him today, I think we would have been in masses of trouble.
What I really liked about him today was he stayed a lot more central, which then gave us a bit more of an outball, whereas quite a few times, I think it was against in the Simon game, he was drifting very far wide, which then we didn't have the option in the middle. Today, he just ran the middle of the park. He still went wide. He drifted wide when the opportunity was there, but it became a bit more of a focal point, which was brilliant to see. It showed just a simple bit of development that we were crying out for over the last week or two.
Yeah, it's very much a watch this space with Hamza. I enjoy every second he's on the park, because you need to at our club. This is where we are, and I don't want to keep throwing it down people's throats, but player trading model. This is exactly what we need to have. We need to have a player who is a gem. He has a good spell at Rangers. We sell him on, and we restart the process. It's difficult because we're not a club that has been ruthless notoriously in transfer windows, and we've reaped the negatives of it, unfortunately, with Kent's, Morelos's, so on. We need to get it right. That's the one thing I say about this Hamza, this hot streak, this Hamza hot streak. There you go. Is that we need to get it right from a club perspective. Obviously, as the Gers capitulating the capital title suggests, it was not all sunshine and rainbows for the Gers. Defensively, we may as well just get on and discuss it. Nothing new, Cheryl. It's a frailty we've had for the majority of the season, but the injury list gets longer, and I think, if I'm correct, I think Proper is now suspended as well, I believe, for the next game, which means the defensive headache continues.
Is he not, right? I had heard, and this could be wrong, he's all right for Dundee, but he's not all right for St Johnstone. Is he in for the next game but misses the next again? I'm not sure, but obviously, regardless, we really are in dire straits defensively. I felt sorry for Leon King today, bringing him on into that. Again, he's not got that game time. You look at that third goal, I think Liam Kelly could have done much better for it. But obviously he's right next to Bashiri, but he's out jumped as well. So that I think that was unfortunate for him. I don't know. Have we heard anything about Sterling? From what I could hear, it looked like they were intimating it was a long-term thing.
I think I'm trying to think of the incident. I believe it was somebody falling on the back of his leg, but I don't think the manager was too either up or down about it. I think it was very much a wait for the assessment. He was quite critical on how long the Suter recovery time would be. I think he was asked how long are Leon and John away from returning. He said Leon's still getting there, but John's still a long-term thing. So the headache is gonna continue. Calvin, we have a manager who has said several times he has a history of playing young players. He's done it at clubs previously, bedding them in and so on. He kind of has to play King at some point. I think we're going down a track that leads to one end. We're going to have to play a Nasiala or a King in there somewhere. We've run out of options. Unless we are shrewd very quickly in the window, King will be involved.
Yeah, and it just seems to be the same situation as what happened to him the last time he was thrown in. He was thrown in because we had nobody else. Whereas when you probably had, well, especially with chopping and changing most of the season, you've had opportunities where you could have put him in next to a more experienced partner just to give him game time in certain opportunities. But we've obviously not been in a position where we can do that, other than when sports science have said so. And that's the downside to it. If we're winning games continuously, consistently, you could then take that chance to bleed them in a little bit. Where we've not had that opportunity. It's had to be, right, there's been a mistake. We need to get back on and get the 3 points the next week. Whereas if you were churning up the wins, that's when you'd have the opportunity to put them in next to a Balogun, a Suter, a Proper. You could have done that. But I've seen a lot of people saying that Leon King is not a proper centre-half as well, which to me, he plays defensive mid for the Scotland under 21s. He's been known to play fullback when he's come on for us. So maybe it's not his best position, but that's where we're going to have to play him as well.
Yeah, I think that is becoming the kind of reasoning behind players coming in, is that they kind of can play there, so chuck them in. We don't have the luxury of a comfortable replacement where these injuries happen. And it
What do
certainly
you
doesn't
think?
help.
What do you guys? Sorry, Andy. What do you guys think of the Johnny Evans rumour? The loan rumour.
Mix, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He's not been particularly great for Man U, but not many players in that team have been great for Man U. He's got experience. He's done it before. Could it be your Davy Weir situation?
Mm.
It's one of those ones. We've seen players come up and it works. We've seen players come up and be a disaster. It'd be the equivalent to like when Keane went to Celtic for me. It just sometimes doesn't work. Then sometimes it does. And that's the gamble. But we're in a position where we might need to gamble at a situation.
It's, to me, again, bigger picture thinking and so on. What are we really hoping to achieve in 6 months? Are we hoping to push them really close and potentially come up short? Are we playing for a Scottish Cup final? Is that what we're doing? Because for me, I feel like if you were to give King, you're getting Ciala involved if potentially, and it doesn't need to even be in the centre back positions. Would 6 months of a youngster here or there, or every now and again, be more beneficial for the club in the long term? Or would you pay Johnny Evans a significant amount of wages, probably? Because he'll be on a nice amount of Man United, that's for sure. It all depends on where the people behind the scenes feel we can go in 6 months.
I think he's been picked up quite a few injuries in the first half of the season for Man U as well. So you're going to bring him in, we're in the exact same position where he is just picking up injuries like everybody else. I think that's what we need to be careful of as well. You're potentially putting a big wage into a player who you're only going to potentially get 6 months. You'd maybe be able to get him in for another year potentially, but does that go with the project that we're supposed to be building? That's where I'd have an issue with it as well.
I'm happy that this Evans rumour has come up because we're looking in the right areas. Because I think we do need short-term reinforcement, but I just think maybe Evans, given the price cap, the injury record, I think we need someone who has the cleanest bill of health possible, who we can then continue to bubble wrap if he ever signs for the club, so that he stays like that. Because we have a horrible, horrible track record of taking uninjured players and making them made of glass. So yeah, I think that's my key thing, is how's the bill of health, is my first question to the scouting team. We obviously finished a draw in the capital. The manager had some choice words to say. The key thing being the penalty decision. Calvin, it's one of these where even in our group chat where we're kind of split, there was a divide on who thought it was a penalty, who thought it wasn't a penalty. You know, I'm going to sit on the fence and let you two kind of have a go at this penalty debate. The manager has said he's looking forward to hearing what the refereeing panel and Willie Collum has to say about it, and he was firmly in he didn't think it was a penalty, and if you start giving penalties, I think he said he's worried about where Scottish football is going for the foreseeable. What's your thoughts?
At Easter Road, it was nobody around me complained that it was given as a penalty because for where we were opposite side of the ground, obviously. It looked a little bit rash for Hadji. It looked like he just kind of threw himself into block the player coming through, which for me at the time I was like, stonewall. Like, it looked silly. But then when you see that, I've watched about 40 different replays after all the conversations we had in the group chat. And there's a few that are quite inconclusive, but there's a few that it shows you the arm coming across for the Hibs player as well. So I think if it's your team, you're shouting for it. If it's not your team, you're not shouting for it. I think it's one of those ones. It's at the time I thought penalty, pretty silly, got himself in. He probably just went in a little bit too reckless in the sense that he's got himself across and at the side of the player. But then when I've seen another replay, you can see the Hibs player's arm coming across first, and is that the first point of contact where he's then intruded on Hadji? And I think that's the very close balance as to is it a penalty or is it not? It was very, very borderline in a few different opportunities I've seen in the cameras.
Sheryl,
Same.
there is. Oh, there you go. For me, there is a word beginning with C, and before you get over the top, don't worry, I'm not going that far. With refereeing, and for some side of the city, it may be conspiracy. The other side of the city, I hope it's consistency. As long as there is drawing a line, because the first thing I seen on Twitter when I looked back at it was, talking about like the Dessers incident with Lagerbielke and Morelos in Europe, and it's like, well, as long as we can get, I'm hoping it doesn't even need to be public, even because the key thing from I took from Clement's interview was I need to then reinforce it to my players. This is a penalty, and you don't drawing the line of what to do and what not to do. Is that there needs to be a communication, because there is a lot of angles that tell you one thing, there's a lot of angles that say another thing, and it's all about the definitive. This is what makes it a penalty, or in another case, but maybe it isn't. This is the reason why it isn't, and I hope that is communicated. I know after the whole cup final, there was a lot of we want to be front facing and tell clubs this is this and that is that, with incidents of a particular penalty or no penalty decision. As long as there's clarity, I can move on from it, because this is what we need in the long term. Sheryl, I know it's. I think to us in a games perspective and not the whole system, it's that you want it if it's your player going down the box, and if it's not, you go, it's never a penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. That just as Calvin said, that's exactly the way that I looked at it, Andy. And then seeing all the different angles for it actually just makes it more difficult, because what angle do you take? Like Calvin, my first thought was, yeah, that is a penalty. But then again, you see the arm, and I don't know, it's very, very difficult. I don't. He did kind of use that as an excuse, but he also then did make reference to the defensive mistakes as well. So I thought on the whole, his interview, I know his interviews can be a wee bit hit and miss. If he genuinely believes that is a penalty, as a lot of people do, then I think he's quite right to come out and say so. But I think also the fact that he picked up on the frailness of the defence, and the confidence that even that first goal gave Hibs as well, I thought his comments on the game in the main were fair enough.
Yeah, I think I was thinking to myself, and I don't want to be harsh, I think he, regardless of what he says, he could come up with something Shakespearean in his post game, and there would be critics. I think that is the territory, but that is what it is, and he'll know that himself. He's been around the game long enough. He's been around the club long enough now. He'll know this is what he has to do, and this is what he has to deal with as the manager of our club. The presser also then was in mentioning, obviously, the lack of defensive reinforcement, Calvin. Clement's wording, and again, this is one of these things, his wording was that Patrick Stewart will be in touch, essentially, to discuss finances for January, which, in a way, I don't know, I went to the negative side and said he'll come out and tell us, nah.
Fear straight away.
Yep. I went to fear, and again, we just need to wait and see what he does say, if it's going to be broadcast out. But for me, I was thinking there's not a lot to go on. But I don't know if you were the same or similar thinking.
I think we were pretty much told weeks ago that we had to get players out the door before we could bring people in. So I don't think it's a big surprise to anybody if they say there's not much there to spend. I think we need to use the loan market very, very smartly. I think we obviously had the bad one with Casheweer, who looked like he certainly had abilities that were going to suit well in the team, and he could fill in or across the full back line, which was perfect. And he picked up that injury away in international duty. Shocker, another injury to an on-loan player at Rangers. But I think that's something that we need to be very smart with. There's players in there we know we want out the door as fans, and probably as the club now, because they're getting very little game time, or they're once again on the injury table, and they eat up big wages. So the transfer fees that we probably want for certain players, as you've seen in the summer when the accounts came out, we probably struggle to get those transfer fees because we've had to pay over the odds to get them up to Scotland. And that could come down to your Dessers, etc., who's we probably looking at trying to at least get our money back on him because he's European form. But what's his wage in comparison to a team that can afford them? So that's the big thing for me. We're probably wanting a certain amount of transfer fee, but we might struggle due to wages that certain players are on. And I know we're stuck with like Tom Lawrence, etc., who'll be on the excess of 20 grand a week probably. And I think that's where the big thing comes in when you start to get players out the door who are on big wages that aren't contributing at all over 2-3 seasons at this stage. We need to be able to use that money then. And I think that's where we're probably going to struggle a little bit this window, but it should make it easier come the summer. So it's just about trying to be smart this window for me.
Cheryl, I know it's one of these things. I do feel that we're going to continue to have, another window where it is pushing people out the door as much as we can. But until the players decide to take that leap, there's not much we can really do. It's going back to the old one where it's it's hard, sometimes hard to get a player out of a club than it is to get them in. And unfortunately, that's where we are. I think, as we mentioned even back at the AGM review, that we did a pretty decent job of that in the summer. There was some players, Deadwood, that either left the club because their contracts ran out, or we managed to just take the hit on to get the wages off. There still continues to be players on a wage that is unacceptable for their amount of use to the club. I'm seeing some. I'll say Dowell needs moved on.
This must be painful for you, Andy. You can do it. Just say it. Say it. Read what it says.
What the Dowell needs moved on. I agree. I agree. Kieran Dowell does need to move on. But that's all I'm seeing there, unfortunately. No, I think that even as a Matondo fanboy, I will fully admit it. The amount of money he's on for what he's getting is quite hard to read. Even and that's painful for me to say, but this comes from the windows in the past that we're trying to fix. You're talking Matondo, Dowell, and Lawrence need to go. Yeah, we have those players still. There are still lingering contracts from the summer. I've got a feeling we might need to just tough it out. But as long as we can maybe push some of these players out, if we're not going to get many in, at least let's continue to focus our efforts on clearing the wage bill.
Mm-hmm. That's the difficulty though, and it's the mess that we've been left in, and that's why I understand everybody's frustrations around the decisions that the board and people prior to them have made as well, because we have been left in an absolute mess where you are really going to struggle to get rid of, sorry Andy, your Matondos, your Dowells, your Dessers. Somebody even mentioned the word McCausland. Absolutely not. There'll be a two-party blockade should that ever happen. But we know the financial situation we're in. We know what needs to be done, but we really are at the mercy of how important it is to these players that they get a wee bit game time versus staying on the money that they're on, and maybe appearing periodically, the odd game here and there. But we know that we need to get them out to be able to get new faces in, and we're in dire need of new faces. So it's a really difficult situation that we've been left in.
Yeah, this is the other part to the whole Johnny Evans thing, is where how much is it helping us to how much is it hindering us? Short term to long term, we're in such a grey area at the minute with our transfer activity. But I suppose it is January always seems to be a bit like silly season. You get absolute nonsense at times, thinking of Aaron Ramsey and so on. But yeah, we'll not talk about that for our own sake. I'm just seeing another one going back to the penalty debate. I'm trying to think of what this one is in regards to. I think maybe it's just a shot. I want to say it was maybe I thought it maybe hit the side if it's the one I'm thinking of.
Potential handball right at the end of the game against the Hibs player. Header came out, player pulls his arm out, and it was pretty similar to the Man United one today. We were all shouting it for the game, but then when I was checking in the group chats, nobody really mentioned it, which then meant it wasn't going to be in any of the highlights when you checked on it after it when you got out. So yeah, it was a strange one. I think it was a bit 50-50, but you've got to shout for it when you're there. I don't think the players made a big deal about it either to apply pressure.
There you go, Paul. I didn't see it. I must have missed that one, but our man who was there live in the scene caught it. So there you go. For me, this is one of these where it's a tough result, but again, try your best to think of the positives. I think we're with the big result on Thursday, the highs, this is the low. Where do we go next? And the answer is another away day. So I'm not gonna jump too far on as our flagship show will continue to look ahead. But just your thoughts again. Sheryl, it's another Thursday night game, granted away from home, but can Thursday night football negate our away form voodoo?
You would certainly hope so. Thursday seems to be our night, although Dens Park does not seem to be a place that we go and do particularly well in. Looking back to last season, we're just so threadbare, particularly in terms of the defence as well. That's the real worry for me. We've used Proper, we've spoken about Proper, we've spoken about how he struggled, but that's who we're now relying on. He's going to start if he's free. I believe something I read earlier said that he'll be able to play. He might not be, but he'd be able to play against Dundee, but miss St Johnstone on Sunday. So if that's the case, we're now in the position where we're relying on him. Where if you rewind back a few Sundays, we were saying that hopefully he might be one of the ones that we kind of force out the door, even in a loan situation in January. That's where we're at. It's hugely concerning. Do you start the same team? Do you start with Danilo? Maybe rest? He alluded to, who was it? It was Hadji and Bayrami looking tired. I don't know if you guys picked up on that in the post-match. He alluded to that. So do you maybe bring Danilo in and have him up front? Maybe, I don't know, drifting out wide, Igamane out to the left. I don't know. It worries me, what our away form's like. I'm going to go for a scrappy 1-0 win to Rangers.
A scrappy 1-0 win. I just had a quick check there. The last time we did play Dundee away from home was the 0-0, which was I think was this the 8th attempt of trying to play that game.
It's not talking
Do you know? I have to say, I was supposed to be covering press that day, and I got all the way up to Dens Park, and one of the police guys said, "That's her up," and I went, "Let's go back to the car, get my McDonald's breakfast," and went up the road. So yeah, I wasn't a happy bear that day. Calvin, funnily enough, though, the game before that was a 5-0 to Rangers away from home at Dens Park.
That's when Lammers scored, Dessers scored, everybody unpredictable that you got to score for firing them in.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's leaning that way. Where are you leaning in terms of us hitting the right heights?
If there's a team that's as pretty much unpredictable as us this season, it seems to be Dundee. They're not very consistent. They got a win today, so let's just go with a 3-0 Rangers.
3-0 Rangers. I'll say, because I'm a sucker for paying a 1-0 that's like tooth and nail, goal line clearances. Another one of those off the post today, which was heart and mouth, the glancing header off the post. It just seemed to fall to Kelly, thankfully. But wait and see. I'm sure the flagship show tomorrow, folks, just in case you're unaware of the forecast on the channel, Monday, the flagship show will go over again our capitulation in the capital, and also looking ahead to Dundee, folks. But I think that'll wrap us up for the Sunday show. Just quite a want to thank my two usual guests. Happy to have you both back. That's not a slight to Stevie, the gaffer who came on last week. It was great to chat to him before I get my P45 in the mail. Just wanted to say that. But great to have you both back on. Calvin, thank you for coming on, mate.
Thanks for having us, mate. It's been a pleasure.
And also Sheryl, thank you for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Just again, down below, you can see them all down there. Rhino Express, Clivey Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for your sponsorship and your support as always. Thank you for everyone tuning in. The questions and comments were great as always. Thank you. And anyone listening back as well, thank you for having us in your listening pattern. So thank you very much for joining me. Till next time, I've been your host Andrew, and we'll see you next time. See you later.
Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clyde Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited and CSD Air Conditioning, along with Art of Gold. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.